Yeah, no, I know what you got. Yeah, I know what you're saying. We're not.
Sorry about that. Welcome, everyone. I just wanted to give you a heads up that we are going to be on TV. So, oh, yeah, there's always one of you in the crowd. So hopefully that's okay. At the question and answer, we're going to have a microphone, a handheld microphone for you. But just FYI, we're on TV and YouTube.
So
We're-
we're on TV.
Right now. Oh, it's live. Yeah, Terry, it's live, so there you go. There are a few people still parking because Dr. Moore is going to actually put a light by the parking meter so everybody can see. But until then, thank you for taking your taking a day out of your week to spend with us. You could be watching an awesome basketball game, but I'm glad you're here. My name is Renu Sinha. I'm one of the founders of Healing Spokane. We are a group of passionate professionals in health and wellness, and we think this is something that our community needs. Our mission is to provide an unbiased, scientifically based program that is geared towards the public and healthcare providers, education with traditional, conventional medical therapies, as well as complementary therapies. So through education and collaboration, we hope to create a new paradigm in our community and work together on wellness. There's growing interest in complementary medicine with consumers and also healthcare providers, so we think this is a good thing to work on, and we hope to guide you as you explore these options. The National Center of Complementary and Integrative Health is a branch of the NIH which attempts to clarify the data. We're inundated on the news or in articles of do this, do that, this is the next best thing. Well, the NIH does a nice job of looking at the science behind it. Now, some people get frustrated with the NIH, but they really work hard to make sure that the recommendations we provide as physicians are scientifically based and not just marketing or some, gadgetry. And I will tell you that our forum is based on just education. We're not here to diagnose, treat, or offer any type of medical advice for a particular patient. So keep that in mind, especially when you're asking questions. We're here just to educate tonight. Tonight's topic is relevant in our stressful modern society. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, 40 million Americans have the most common mental illness, which is anxiety. 15 million have depression. And it's estimated at $42 billion are spent on anxiety treatment. What's interesting to me is half of that money is for the side effects or the physical manifestations of anxiety. So this is a big deal. It's not just anxiety itself. Sometimes you'll have different issues, bodily pains or complaints that you'll go to the doctor or nurse practitioner for, and it will be due to anxiety. So we really need to address this and be open. Tonight we'll have 6 different approaches to depression and anxiety. And you'll see some overlap, but the specialists use different lens to look at anxiety and depression, and you'll appreciate that nothing is a quick fix, but working together, you'll see where things are very useful and can be very cost-effective as well. Initially, we'll focus on conventional medical therapy, and then we'll go beyond traditional therapy. And after the presentations, we're going to have a panel discussion where we will also have a question and answer session, and I'd like you to hold your questions until then. Our first speaker will present the family practice approach to anxiety and depression, and that is Dr. Mary Burgum. And here you go.
Hi, I'm Mary Burgum. So I have my own family practice, and I'm trying to do more of the integrative and more wellness. But when you come to depression and anxiety, it's pretty straightforward. You know, the first thing that I really recommend is that everybody has screening done. So every year, all of my patients have a screening test done. It's just 9 questions. There's also a really good one online that's the PHQ-2, so it's really just 2 questions. And it just kind of gives you an idea of where you're at and do you need to look for help. So we start off with a screening. The definition of depression is being down and just kind of lethargic, not feeling good about yourself for 2 or more weeks. If it goes on for more than 3 months, that's actually dysthymia. So it's similar, but it's more pervasive and just goes on and on. So symptoms of a depression include having problems making decisions, having problems with your memory, just not feeling well, feeling isolated. Why bother? Not having any motivation, those kind of things. So a lot of people are actually concerned. They'll come in, oh, I'm not remembering things. You know, I forgot to do something. And that can actually just be a manifestation of depression. In the same way, you can also have more pain with depression. And it's very common for people with pain problems to have depression. Depression is also not ruled out by other serious problems in your life. So it's common for people to go through divorce, having problems at work, having family history, all those kind of things. That does not mean that just because you know why you're depressed doesn't mean that the depression's not there. So we still want to treat that and want to try and get you help with those kind of things. So as a family practice physician, I usually always have that, what I call a PHQ-9, and that's basically just a screening for depression. It gives me numbers and tells me how likely it is that this patient is having problems. But beyond that, I'm asking a lot about your family history, your personal history, your diet, exercise, supplements. Never underestimate how much harm we can cause with medicine. So medicines all have side effects. So that's another thing to look at, because sometimes depression is merely side effects of other medications. I'm always looking at supplements, what you're doing. Supplements, there's certain supplements that can really help with depression. Some of those being vitamin D, fish oils. There's a lot of over-the-counter things that can help but can also hurt. So I'm really doing that history. When we're looking at treatment, again, I'm usually promoting some of those supplements, but I'm also really promoting activity. Most people who are depressed aren't getting out and walking regularly. They're not doing regular exercise. And that's really important because exercise can give you those endorphins, which really promote better activity, better feelings of well-being. So I'm looking at medications next. For me, I usually am deciding whether this patient is in trouble. Do I have time to wait for these medications to work? And so all of the antidepressants are going to take somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks to actually do any good changes for people. We have to worry about side effects of those medications because they do cause other problems. So I'm querying that patient, what kind of problems do you have? What can we deal with? What's dangerous? Are you suicidal? And more importantly, if you're suicidal, do you have a plan? That's a big part of my job, is making sure that you're safe. And it is my job to make sure that my patients are safe. So I need to make sure that if they're going to walk out of that office, they know that somebody cares, that there's something they can do. If I have somebody who's really in a lot of trouble, I'll actually give them an antidepressant that I think will work for them. But at the same time, I'll do genetic testing, and sometimes even on that first visit if they're in trouble. And essentially, the genetic testing shows how your liver functions, and it doesn't show you the best medications, but it shows you which ones to avoid. So it's helpful in a lot of situations, but not all situations. The other thing that I really recommend is follow-up and monitoring, and then also looking at other things that we can do to help in that situation. And hopefully we're going to hear about many of the other options. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Our next presenter is Dr. Alicia Policani, and she's going to present the naturopathic approach. Can you stand up?
I was going to. Okay. All right. Hello, thanks for coming tonight. So what I would like to discuss with you tonight is actually the relationship between anxiety and depression and the health of your gut. And, you know, to illustrate how that can possibly be, I'm going to talk about some different pertinent facts that will help you understand the vital communication between the two. So the first thing is that we actually have over 100 million nerves in our digestive system, and that is actually more than our entire spinal cord. The gut and the brain actually develop from the same tissue during fetal development. One part becomes the central nervous system, and then the other part becomes the enteric or gut nervous system. And those two communicate via the vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve is your 10th cranial nerve, and it runs from your brain, and it innervates all your internal organs. But why that's important is because what it means is that the brain actually has a very large semi-autonomous brain, which what that means is that it can, in a large part, actually function on its own. Basically, virtually every neurotransmitter that's been discovered is found in the gut. And actually 90% of your serotonin, which is your happy neurotransmitter, that's what antidepressants, one of the neurotransmitters that antidepressants increase, 90% of that is actually manufactured in the gut. Okay. What they find is that within the first few days of life, our intestines are actually colonized by our microbiome, our good gut bugs. And those gut bugs actually stimulate the neural pathways and the signaling systems that are within the central nervous system. So there's actually been several NIH studies that have been published that have linked a disruption in those good gut bacteria, your microbiome, to anxiety, depression, anorexia, alcoholism, and actually we're seeing stuff coming out about Alzheimer's. It's really exciting and very interesting. And they have found that the influence between the brain and the gut actually goes both ways. Okay? So this means that diet, your exercise routine, your health state, your mood, the amount of stress that you're under, your gender, all can actually alter, influence your good gut bugs, and that they in turn will communicate back and alter the production of your neurotransmitters in your brain. There's actually some profound examples of this. Back in 2008, there was a study that was conducted in a journal called Brain Behavior Immunology. And they found that Campylobacter jejuni, which is a really common foodborne illness, consistently produced anxiety-like behaviors. And they found that it did this by activating the regions of the brain that caused anxiety, and it did it via that vagus nerve. It's also been shown that the levels of serotonin in the brain are actually regulated by the amount of bacteria that are present in your gut during early life, and that normal adult brain function actually depends on the presence of good gut bugs during your development. So this is hugely important because it shows how antibiotics, diet, and infections can have a profound effect on your brain function and on your mental health. So as a practitioner, that's why I find it's so important in treating chronic anxiety and depression to really make sure that I focus on the health of your gut and your microbiome. So what can you do as a patient about any of this, really? Well, I'm going to go over some of the major factors that can influence the health of your microbiome, and as I go through that list, it'll probably become pretty obvious what you can do to help yourself out. So the first thing is genetics, and you would think, well, there's nothing I can do about my genetics, and that's actually not true. You know, one of the things that came out of the completion of the human genome study was what's called the field of epigenetics, and what that taught us is that we can actually turn our genes on and off after we're born. And diet and nutrition play a big role in that, so you really can alter your gene expression by changing your diet and your lifestyle. Second is stress. There's a lot of things we can do to alter stress, and you know, we'll be talking about that tonight. Pollution. Unfortunately, there's, you know, some pollution we can't do anything about, but there actually is, you know, more what we'll call local pollution that you can actually alter. So, for example, eating organic, you know, as organically as you can afford, using organic non-toxic cleaning products, bath and beauty products. You know, when you're driving to and from work, turn off the outside air so you're not breathing in all of the, you know, fumes as you commute back and forth. Pharmaceuticals. Now, obviously, there's a time and place for medications. If you have a heart condition, you're going to be on pharmaceuticals. Those are necessary for life. But there might be some different pharmaceuticals that you are on that you might be able to wean off with your prescribing physician under their care, you know, by altering your diet and lifestyle. But that would be a conversation for you and your doctor. Psychological status. Psychological status, of course, you know, that's where counseling and behavioral medicine come in, so you can actually alter that. And microbial exposure. So that's talking about, you know, these foodborne illnesses. Don't eat the leftovers that have been in your fridge for 2 weeks. When you go to Mexico, drink bottled water, you know, so on and so forth. So what can I do to intervene as a physician? Well, I can intervene on a lot of levels, but I think one important thing that I want to state tonight is that as physicians, we should be a lot more judicious in our use of antibiotics. They have actually found that one short course of amoxicillin can actually negatively alter your microbiome for up to 6 months after the course. And 1 week of clindamycin can actually negatively alter your microbiome for up to 2 years. So that can obviously have a pretty negative impact on your mental health. So the best things that you can do to help your brain and your gut to communicate more effectively and thereby improve your mental health status, maintain the diversity of your microbiome. And you do that by maintaining a diversity of your diet. Ancient man ate about 600 different foods. We eat about 15, okay? So go to the Asian grocery store. You know, eat different stuff. Try different fruits and vegetables that you've never tried before. The good gut bugs really like prebiotic foods, so leeks and garlic and onions and artichokes, and you can Google for a list. They also like roots and tubers and seeds. Those are all foods that are high in the things that they need to get healthy and diversify. Clean up your diet and your environment. When we're in the Q&A later, ask me. I've got a good website to help you out. But, you know, like I said, eat as organically as you can. You know, try to use non-toxic products in your house and so on and so forth. And advocate for the health of your family. You know, vote with your dollars. Next time a bill comes up to label GMO foods, don't vote it down. And we won't get into all that, but a lot of the pesticides that are associated with GMO foods are very, very negatively impactful on your microbiome, okay? And lastly, don't run to your doctor every time you have a sniffle for an antibiotic, okay? You know, a lot of times it's viral or run its course. I know it's miserable, but again, I want you to weigh the pros and cons of that when we're thinking about, you know, the health of your gut and your microbiome. So you'll notice tonight that I didn't talk about supplements, and obviously it's not because I don't believe in supplements, because I am a naturopathic physician, but I really wanted to talk to you about cause. And the thing about supplements and pharmaceuticals is that they're Band-Aids. And I'm certainly not against using a Band-Aid. If your quality of life is extremely negatively affected by anxiety and depression, well, you need something to help you out. while we're working on the cause. But, if your depression is better with 5-HTP or Prozac, then we can maybe assume that it's due to low serotonin. Well, where's 90% of your serotonin made? In the gut. So that's, something that we want to be looking at, so then you're not reliant on pharmaceuticals or supplements for the rest of your life. Okay, so I appreciate all of you coming, and thank you.
Thank you. Here's for your slides.
Oh, thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Shawn Smith, and he's the brain man. Don't fall. There's like 2 stairs
Thank
there,
you.
and I know you have your glasses on. So
Thank you. I'm going to stand down here so nobody has to look at my butt.
All right.
That says more about
That's
me
too
than
much
anybody
information.
else. Okay, so if I do slides here. All right. I'm going to try to talk fast so I can get a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. And then during question and answer, we can pull out the specifics, okay? If you look up here, this is the effect size for treatment of depression. What I want you to see is one of the most common questions I get as a psychologist is, does talk therapy really work for depression and or anxiety? And the answer is up here on the slide, yes, it does. So on the left is drug therapy. So this is a large-scale meta-analysis looking at different treatments for depression. Everything's converted to effect size so we can compare different treatments. And on the left is pharmaceuticals, then therapy, then expectancy effects, and then no treatment at all. And what I want you to see is that therapy is roughly about the same effectiveness, maybe slightly more, depending on the size of error for drug. But the biggest column is that expectancy column. And so a lot of us as practitioners, our job is to give the patient hope that there is something that is going to help you. So if you try something, one of the panels suggests, or if you try going to naturopath and it doesn't work, or you try to go into traditional doctor and it doesn't work, keep looking. There is something that will work for you. So expectancy is the biggest factor for change when we talk about depression. And then the next slide, whoops, there we go. Okay, so the other thing is some people get really hung up on the type of treatment, especially when they go in to see a psychologist. They want a specific branded treatment, whether you're talking about EMDR is one of the ones that gets shopped around a lot for trauma. But people come into clinicians and they're looking for a specific branded treatment. And what I want you to get is out of decades worth of research, when we combine all the factors that account for therapeutic change, and this is a cross-diagnostic category, so we're capturing depression, anxiety, trauma, all other things, is that 40%, the dark blue there, is what the client brings in, what's going on in your life, what's happening with diet and exercise, what's happening with family relationships. So 40% of the factors that account for change, you're already bringing in with you when you come into the office. Then the next is 30%. That's the relationship that you have with your clinician. So if you feel like this is someone that you can trust and that you can be open with and that you can make progress with, then that goes along having that good relationship. Right there we account for 70% of the change. So again, the take-home message is, if you don't like your therapist, fire him or her and go find somebody else. And then the expectancy is the next group. So the 15% there is expectancy. Again, that hope that something could get better. And right there, we're up to 85% of what accounts for therapeutic change. 15% is the type of treatment that you're getting in terms of psychotherapy. I'm only talking about psychotherapy here because that's my domain. But 15% would be the type or the specific technique. So you don't have to get too hung up on the type of technique. As long as you have a good relationship with your therapist, you feel comfortable about things, you feel comfortable opening up about what's going on in your life, chances are things are going to get better for you. Okay, so I've got some time left. All right, I'm going to walk you through a real simple model of the brain, because what I've come to determine based on research and experience is that anxiety and depression are human problems. So if you're anxious or depressed, congratulations, that means you're alive. That's good. And every single person will go through periods of some kind of anxiety and some kind of depression. Now, it'll vary how long those episodes last for each person or how frequently you get them based on what's going on in your life. But the fact that you're depressed or the fact that you're anxious does not mean that you're a broken, flawed human being. It just means that you're a human being. We have two major problems when it comes to our brain as human beings. The first one is a structural design flaw in the brain itself. So I'm going to walk you through a model of the brain using my hand here. If you imagine that my forearm here is the spine. This fleshy part of my hand right here would be the first part of our brains that evolved. So we would collectively talk about these structures as the reptile brain. Now, the reptile brain primarily is responsible for keeping you alive. So everything you need for survival is either mediated by structures in that part of the brain or controlled by structures in that part of the brain. And so the convenient way to think about it is the 5 Fs. And the 5 Fs are fight, flight, freeze. Those are your survival responses. Foraging, which pushes you out in the environment to get the things you need like food or shelter. And then fornication, which is your sexual urge so you get genes into the next generation. In reptiles, that's where it stopped. So there's not a lot of thinking going on in lizards or snakes, in case you were curious. Not a lot of them get depressed, so they're just going about their business. Now, if I fold my thumb in like that, this becomes the middle part of the brain. So sometimes you refer to these structures as the midbrain. These are the structures that evolved primarily in mammals. So you might hear it referred to as the mammalian brain, or you might hear the limbic brain. All three terms refer to the same set of structures that sit right in the middle of the brain. Now, functionally speaking, these structures are responsible for relationships, emotions, and memory. So that sits right in the middle of the brain. And then if I fold my fingers over like this, so the brain is sitting in my skull, knuckles forward like this, this finger, the outside fingers would represent the more modern part of the brain, the part of the brain that we typically think of as making us human. So this is the seat of logic, language, reason, complex thought, those types of things. When I teach this to kids, I say, this is your little professor. So you have a little lab coat and glasses. This is the smart one. The problem is whenever there's a conflict between a more recent part of the brain and a more ancient part of the brain, the more ancient one always wins. That's the design flaw. So whenever we get triggered into a fight or flight mode, it could be fear, could be anger, could be stress, we flip our lid, the professor goes to the back seat. The thing that emerges to take control of the bus is our reptile brain. Think of that as your T-Rex brain. Bad things happen when T-Rex starts driving the bus. And so that's the structural design flaw. Now, the training problem is no one ever taught you how to interact with this thing called a mind. And our mind, as our previous speakers already talked about, our mind is actually distributed throughout your whole body. It's not housed exclusively in this organ called a brain. And so your mind right now, your mind is more powerful than any supercomputer on the planet right now. And all bets are off once Google figures out AI, but up until then, we're good. But if you think about it, no one ever taught you how to interact with your mind. No one ever taught you, this is a feeling, this is what you do with it, this is a thought, this is how it's different than feelings, this is what you do with that, this is an emotion, this is how it's different than thoughts and feelings, this is what you do with that, and this is this thing called self. No one taught you how to do that. And so it's not surprising that many of us stumble into adulthood with this way of relating to our mind that creates problems for us as we go forward. So those are the big rocks for anxiety and depression, and we can parse out some specific details during question and answers later on.
Thank you. All right, now that the Westerners are all done, Western medicine, Shawn, us Easterners are going to show you where the brain really is. Our next speaker is Sherry Wu, and she's going to give us the traditional Chinese medicine approach to depression and anxiety.
So I need everybody to do a complete switch of your brain. Whatever they said, right, of your brains. So I'm going to be talking about the traditional Chinese medicine perspective on depression and anxiety. I will shorten the traditional Chinese medicine as TCM from now on, just so that everybody knows. So as the previous speakers have mentioned, that depression and anxiety are the two most common emotional disorders, affects millions of people worldwide. So how do TCM view depression and anxiety? So first of all, TCM is a holistic medicine. It, to a TCM practitioner, the mind, the body, and the spirit, is actually all integrated into a person. No one aspect can be separated out as a single entity. And also TCM takes into account the human interaction with the environment. For example, climate changes or the diet that you eat or your social interactions can all affect your health. So emotion and the body. So in traditional Chinese medicine or TCM, the emotion is not isolated from the body. As a matter of fact, each Chinese internal organ has an emotion associated with it. And physical ailments all have an emotional component. And also, intense emotions a lot of times can be the root cause of physical ailments. So the complex interaction between human and the environment and also the Chinese internal organs are demonstrated in this diagram. It's called the 5-element diagram of organ interactions and emotions. So in this diagram, the liver, the heart, the spleen, lung, and the kidney, those are the Chinese internal organs in the TCM. So each organ, that does not have a pointer, huh? Does that laser? How's it? So let me explain. So for example, liver. So liver is an internal organ, and it's a wood element. It's green in, so each organ system has a color associated, has an element, has an emotion, has a taste, and has a season associated with it. So liver is green in color, it's wood element. The emotion associated with liver is anger, and the liver energy flourishes in the springtime. And then the taste for liver is sour. In heart organ, it's red in color. The season for heart is summer, and it's a fire element. The emotion associated with it is joy, and the taste associated with heart is bitterness. So, and so on and so forth. So, and also this arrow. So that indicates the energy flow. If you have a healthy liver energy, it nourishes the organ that's at the end of the arrow here. So healthy liver energy nourishes the heart. So let's actually look at the liver energy a little bit more closely, because this is at the center of depression and anxiety in TCM. So liver, it's a wood element, so, and it flourishes in the springtime. So I like to think of liver as a growing tree in the springtime. So its energy likes to spread and develop and expand. It's happiest when it's doing that. So remember I said emotion can impact a person's health and could even be the root cause. So for example, if, say if you have a lot of stress at work, you just have a really bad boss who's not appreciative and who puts restraints and it's not very supportive. So you do not feel very supported. So when it becomes chronic, it's like putting restraints on the liver energy. So it does not let liver grow. And then first you become frustrated, and then you become irritable, and then you become angrier and angrier because the emotion does not have an outlet. And then after a little while, you just give up. You know, you're like, nothing I do, you feel hopeless. And then you go into more of the kind of that depressed stage. So the anger coming from whatever emotional stress can cause a liver, can cause liver patterns. So for example, you can have what's called liver qi stagnation, liver energy stagnation. And the physical signs could be high blood pressure, bitter taste in the mouth, red eyes, feeling distension underneath your ribs and the diaphragm. So that's a liver pattern. And, you know, it's anger. Vice versa, if you have a great boss, no stress, you have great kids, great family, and So you have no emotional disorder to start with. And your diet is very poor. You keep eating greasy food and sweet food, and then you're not exercising, then you can cause liver congestion. One of the most important functions of the liver organ in TCM is to ensure the smooth flow of energy throughout the whole body. So when the liver is congested, then the energy does not flow. And when energy does not flow, you can get into liver patterns. For example, the high blood pressure, the heat sensation, and the bitter taste in the mouth, and then the feelings of distension underneath the diaphragm. And then the emotion that comes out with it is irritability, anger. So that's how that goes, the interaction. And then let's take a look at the heart element, which is along with liver at the center of anxiety. So the heart is a fire element. So when that energy is in balance, then you feel passion for life. You like life. You're very energetic. But when the fire element tends to burn out of control. So when that fire element is burning out of control, then you have heat signs, heat sensations, and then you start having racing thoughts, insomnia, and the free-floating anxiety in your chest. And so that's that emotion, but also physically, some people can have heart palpitation and feeling, kind of what they call it, the heat in the chest area or in the palms or on the bottom of the feet. So these are physical signs. And healthy liver energy flows into the heart. So it nourishes the heart. So if your liver is healthy, then you're less likely to have that fire element get out of balance and get anxiety. So that's kind of how this 5-element system works. So how does TCM practitioners treat anxiety and depression, or just general? In general, how do TCM practitioners treat various ailments? So first is the concept of need to get you into balance. So what does that mean? So I suspect most of the people in this audience have seen this yin and yang sign. So I'll explain a little bit more. So the white part is yang. And then the black part is yin. There's yin within yang, and then there's yang within yin. So yang literally in Chinese means the sun. Yin means shadow. So imagine a sun shining on an object. The bright part, the warm part, is yang. And the shadowy part, the cooler part, is yin. So yang is the masculine, the warm, the rough, or yang activity will be something like cardiovascular exercise or weight training, something that gets your heart rate going. And inactivity would be something like you're resting, you're sleeping, you're meditating, you're sitting and reading, quietly reading a book. That would be inactivities. So that balance would be, so 50% of your time in a day should be spent doing inactivities. And then 50% of your time should be spent doing yang activities. Then you're in balance. If you're not sleeping enough, then you have too much yang energy in your body. Then that can get out of balance. So that's the yin and yang balance here. Okay. And another concept is the flow. So in order to achieve the yin and yang balance, the energy has to flow. So qi is like a life force. And then there are 12 major meridians in the body. And when the qi flows in your body smoothly, then you're in good health. When the flow of the qi is blocked, then you have something. If it's in the heart area, you can have heart symptoms, and wherever it is. So good health is balance and flow. So TCM therapies are mainly if you go to an acupuncturist or TCM practitioner, then they may use acupuncture needles or herbs to kind of redirect the flow of the qi so that you release the constraint on the liver. And then if you have a lot of fire in the heart, then you drain the fire so to get you back into balance. Also, if your signs and symptoms are not very severe, then you can use these diet changes. Eat less, avoid greasy food so your liver does not get congested. And you can also use food as medicine. If you have too much heat in the body, then you eat the foods that are cooling in energy. Tai Chi and Qigong are good meditative, slow movements. All that rhythmic breathing is very good in smooth the flow of the energy and the qi and get yourself back into balance. So all of these were used by TCM practitioners to get you better from symptoms of anxiety and depression. So that is TCM in a nutshell.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to talk about Ayurveda, and that is the ancient healing system of India. It is accepted by the National Institutes of Health as being a holistic, integrative health system. The treatment focuses on diet, lifestyle, and herbs. It's kind of similar to TCM approach, but different, very different in some regards. Basic tenets are that proper digestion is the key, and it can result in disease when not properly taken care of, and result in wellness when digestion is good. So it's not just what you eat, it's more important where you're eating, how you're eating, and what your digestive capability is. So treat the root of the problem, not the symptoms, which is different than Western medicine. Maintain a mind, body, spirit balance. Otherwise, you'll have organ malfunction, and prolonged in that situation leads to disease. Therefore, spiritual imbalance leads to emotional imbalance, which is what we're talking about tonight. And emotional imbalance can lead to physical imbalance. So it's all tied together, similar to what Dr. Wu was talking about. In the interest of time, I'm only going to discuss anxiety. And in order to understand Ayurvedic teaching in regard to anxiety, we have to understand the constitutional types. Ayurveda feels that we all have certain percentages of air, earth, and fire. Some of us may be dominant in one only or one or two. And the three constitutional types help us understand certain disorders, and by that, we can also fix them by balancing those disorders. So Vata type individuals are usually tall, thin, they're always on the go. Unfortunately, they have irregular digestion. These are the thinkers of our society, but they tend to overdo things, and they're very high risk for anxiety or nervous disorders. Pitta type dominant people are medium build, good digestion. They are the doers of our society. But if they're out of balance, they get frustrated, irritable, and if things don't go their way, angry. And you know who you are, okay? So Kapha people are bigger. It is difficult for them to lose weight. They have a sluggish digestion. That's just normal for them. They, I believe, are the supporters of our society, but out of balance, out of balance, they can have risk for depression, okay? It's interestingly, like Chinese medicine Ayurveda believes in the seasons as well, and there's something to be said for eat for the seasons, okay? Vata season, which puts us all at risk for anxiety and nervousness and spaciness and whatnot, is autumn and winter. So all of us have to take care of this, not just people who are Vata dominant. And by the way, most diseases, according to Ayurveda, are due to the fact that Vata is not taken care of. Probably 80% of disorders that we see. All right? So what the heck is Vata dosha? When Vata actually controls the nervous system, according to Ayurveda. And when in a balanced state, you're energetic, creative, enthusiastic, but when you go out of balance or have excess ether energy, you have restlessness, just jitters, sometimes insomnia, which can manifest as anxiety. And physically, you can develop dry skin and constipation, so that's when the emotional has gone further and you're manifesting the physical symptoms. So Ayurveda teaches us that balance is the key. If our digestive capability, digestive fire, is supported, it'll be nice that we will not build up a bunch of toxins or congestion. If we don't balance that, we have congestion of the GI system, and the liver and emotional energy cannot flow. Okay, so that's important to remember. The good news is you can support your emotional and digestive fire. So how do we control excess air, ether, Vata energy? Well, 4 things: daily self-care, lifestyle, diet, and herbs. This, I think, is the easiest for you to do. It might be difficult for some people to do, but I think of it as, when you have babies, what happens to them when they don't follow their routine? The whole family suffers because they are a nightmare. So if you establish your own self-care, eating regularly, Vata people tend not to eat regularly. They're on the go. Sleeping before 10 p.m. is important. Doing morning yoga, gentle yoga, some sun salutations, child's pose, corpse pose, relaxing. I'm not talking about going out and sweating hot yoga like I know somebody in the audience likes to do. That is not good if you have anxiety. Meditation or mindfulness, important. Just clear the mind, offer gratitude, and prepare for the day. Pranayama literally translates to life force energy control. And you think, what the heck does that mean? Breathing. Alternate nostril breathing is very effective, and we've studied that in Eastern and Western medical literature, and Anna is going to demonstrate some of that later. Massage, even just putting oil on your feet, massaging your feet before you go to bed is going to relax you, or if you feel anxious. And by the way, I should say, with all of our Eastern therapies that we're discussing, that's for mild anxiety. I don't want you thinking this is for severe anxiety or suicidal tendencies or severe depression. Western medicine is very effective with that. Gentle exercise, walking in nature, sitting in nature, just, things like that. Marma pressure is kind of like acupressure, and there's an area on your palm just below the 3rd finger on the left side you can push. If you feel anxious, and you can close your hand and just relax, and that's a good marma point. And don't squeeze yourself to death or something, but it is very effective. Lifestyle, accept your emotions, accept your relationships. It's okay. You are okay who you are. You're the person who is in charge. Slow down, turn off those phones, don't watch the TV at night, and probably skip the news sometimes. I don't know about you, but I get anxious just watching the news. If you can, maintain peaceful home life free of clutter. That helps with anxiety. As far as diet, Vata is cold, dry, and moving. So we want stuff that's opposite. We want warm, moist foods, regular meals. Sweet, sour, and salty foods are important for Vata, and I don't have time to go into why that is. But warm drinks, and I'm not talking alcohol or caffeine. Try not to use those. Those are not good for anxious people in general. Warm drinks, ginger, lemon, tries to reduce the congestion and toxins that build up during day-to-day life. Dairy might be useful for people who can tolerate it, and spices, in particular ginger, fennel, very useful. And I'm not a big, huge promoter of herbs, but ashwagandha is very useful. It's been in the news, it's been studied, Western and Eastern medicine. It's an effective adaptogen. It's not for everybody, okay? It does energize the body while calming the mind. You don't get the crashes that you do with sugar or caffeine. So it's something that has been used for thousands of years pretty effectively, and we're learning about it now in America. So this is a busy slide, but Ayurveda doesn't have a lot of restrictions. It preaches moderation. So avoid things in general that are raw, cold, drying. Try to eat more warm, grounding foods, little spice, kind of things like that. That's useful. And there's a lot more favorable foods that I didn't have ability to put on this slide. So I hope you can see that the beauty with Ayurveda is promoting self-care. You live with yourself 24 hours a day. So when you come into my office, you know what is wrong with you more than I do. And with that, you have the ability to say, hey, this works, this doesn't work, this makes anxiety worse, this doesn't. So with that awareness, you're able to help yourself. And Ayurveda can give you some of the information to help you in that regard. And I hope you can use some of the information that I provided and explore it with your healthcare provider to achieve balance between mind, body, and spirit. Thanks. All right. Our next presenter is Anna Molgard, and she is going to speak on yoga and meditation.
Good evening. I'd like to talk a little bit about yoga therapy for anxiety and depression. So what is yoga? Yoga is derived from the same word as yoke. Yoke and yoga come from the same derivation of the word. And so it's this concept, what we've been talking about in this Eastern view of yoking, joining the body and the mind and the spirit together. Yoga therapy is a specific way to bring the practices of yoga into a customized practice of yoking for individuals. It's an adjunct therapy that's recommended to be used in conjunction with licensed medical care. Just a word about yoga classes, group classes. Keep in mind that not all yoga classes are the same. And not all yoga teachers are the same. So it's really great for you to research a specific teacher's training and background if you're considering going to a group class or a studio or some fitness center to find out what their background and training is, especially if you're managing some of these little bit more complicated issues. And also it's important to choose an appropriate style for a condition. So again, as was referenced, we may not want to go to a really hot, vigorous yoga class if we're managing, anxiety, things like that. So choosing a class or a type or practice that's going to be appropriate for what you're managing is important. So the yogic view of anxiety and depression, again, comes with this idea of balance. So it's this balance of energy in the body. The quality of anxiety is an indication that there's excess energy in the body. And so we want to choose practices that initially meet the client where they are and then slowly bring that energy down, okay? So most of the time we don't want to start with a really slow, calming, grounding practice. If someone's anxious, that would just drive them crazy. So we want to meet them where they are and then slowly bring them down. So in the converse, depression is a lack of energy in the body. So we want to choose practices that will help kind of bring that energy up into the body and increase that. All right, so I'm going to do a little demonstration. We're going to do some practices together, some simple practices that can help us to connect with these qualities in the body. So the first category we're going to talk about is asana, which are some of the yoga postures, which is what a lot of us think of when we think about what yoga is. It's really just one part of yoga. So should we try it together? Okay, so we'll demonstrate this first seated, and then I'll show you an option that you can practice at home on the floor. I'll demonstrate that on the mat. So we'll come into our seat. Let's sit forward on our seat so we're not slumping back into our chair. So cat-cow is a pretty simple movement. You can rest the hands on the lap. You want your feet firmly planted on the earth. And we want to link the movement to the breath. So we'll start with kind of a moderate pace, and we'll talk about how we can modify this for either anxiety or depression. So we'll just take a deep breath in through the nose. We'll draw the chest forward and lift the chin up. And then on the exhale, hands can wrap around the knees. We'll tuck the chin down in towards the chest and round through the back. Inhale forward. This is our cow pose. And then we'll exhale, arch the back into cat. Let's just do one more time. Inhale. And exhale. Good. And then we'll come back to center. So if we're managing maybe a little bit more anxiety, so we have excess energy in the body, we would want to have a slower pace, right? We can kind of start with a pace that's supporting how we're feeling, and then slowly slowing down that pace, like we talked about, decreasing the energy. If we're feeling a little bit more of that depression and the sluggish energy, we can start with a little bit more rapid pace. Another thing that we could do is add a little modification. So let's try this. We'll inhale, we'll reach both arms up. I'm holding a microphone, so you can do both arms. Inhale, we'll reach the arms up. And then exhale, hands on the legs, and then we'll find our cat-cow. Inhale forward, and exhale back. Okay. Inhale, lift and lengthen through the spine, lift the arms. And then exhale, hands down, find your cat-cow, inhale, and exhale. Let's take it just a little bit quicker. Inhale, reach, exhale, back, inhale, forward, and exhale and round. Good. So simple cat-cow with modifications. I'll show you how to do this pose on the earth if you'd like, and I'll just do a quick demonstration. And then if you'd like to add that modification, I'll show that. That's all there is to it. Okay, so you can just adjust the pace according to what you need. So now we'll talk a little bit about some restorative poses that are really supportive. I'll demonstrate child's pose. I'll show you on the floor, and then I'll show you a way that you can do this in the chair. We'll do it together, okay? So this is child's pose. You can move from your cat pose with an arched back, and then you just sit the hips back towards the heels. Head can rest on the earth. Or if that's not available to you, you can stack the fists, hands on the fists, and rest the head on the hands. And you can rest in that pose. It's a very calming posture, okay? Another really great posture that you can do is legs up the wall. I'll demonstrate this on a chair. You just bring the lower body, the back onto the earth, and then legs can simply rest over the chair. So this is a nice modification, especially if you have issues with your back. Or you can come up close to the wall and the legs will literally rest on the wall. Okay? So let's try child's pose seated in our chair, shall we? So we'll start by resting the forearms onto the legs. We'll take a deep breath in. And then exhale, just fold forward, dropping the head as heavy as it feels like it can. And breathe. And then on the next inhale, you can place the hands onto the upper legs and roll up. And come back to center. So you can combine those in any way. This is a great example of what was referred to earlier for some morning practices that can help you. So that's our asana, our postures. Let's talk a little bit about pranayama, this idea of the life force being manipulated a little bit. As we talked about in Ayurveda, it's really breathing exercises. So I'll teach you a couple of these really quickly, and you can practice these at home. The first one I'll teach you is the ocean sounding breath, or the ujjayi breath. And it's the first part of a really well-studied breathing sequence. It's called the Sudarshan Kriya, that we won't be teaching tonight. But if you're interested in that, it's been widely studied in medical literature as a really wonderful way to address anxiety and depression. So the first way, very first part of that is the ocean sounding breath. So you can take one hand and we'll place it in front of the mouth. We're going to pretend like this hand is a mirror, okay? And we'll inhale through the nose. And then we're going to exhale and blow on the hand like we're trying to fog up that mirror. You feel that heat? Let's do that again. Inhale through the nose. Exhale. One more time. So all we do to practice the ujjayi breath, we do the exact same thing, we just close the lips. You can keep the hand there if you want. That helps you. Inhale through the nose. Exhale. 2 more. Last one. And then just notice how you feel. So that is a very calming breath. It can be practiced really anywhere. There's not a lot of contraindications for that breath. The 3-part breath you can use with the ujjayi breath, but we'll start with taking a part of the breath down into the low part of the body, into the belly. The second part of the breath into the lungs, and then the last part of the breath into the upper chest. So we inhale from the low part of the body up, and then we exhale from the upper part of the body down. And you can imagine like the flow of a wave. Inhale up and exhaling down. Let's just try 2 more. Inhale low, middle, and high. Exhale high, middle, and low. Good. Inhale low, middle, and high. Exhale high, middle, and low. And you can combine the ujjayi breath with that 3-part breath. So the other breath that was referenced earlier is this alternate nostril breathing. It's really simple. It's really, really wonderful. So we're going to try that. You ready? So take your right hand. I'm not going to mirror you. We'll tuck in the index finger and the middle finger. Okay? And we're going to just plug one side of the nose at a time and breathe in and out through the sides of the nose, alternating the nostrils. That's why we call it alternate nostril breathing. So we'll start by gently closing off the right side of the nose. Inhale through the left side. Close the left nostril, exhale the right. Inhale right. Switch the hand, exhale left. Let's try that one more time. Inhale left. Switch the hand, exhale right. Inhale right. Switch the hand and exhale left. And that's it. Simple, you can do that anywhere. Yeah. All right, so those are some wonderful breathing practices. Respiration is the pathway to our central nervous system. So it's the one way that we can actually access that consciously. The last little practice we'll do is a body scan. Meditation and mindfulness really helps us to regulate the nervous system, as it's been referred before. So we'll do a body scan to close our practice, but another simple practice is just to contract and release various parts of the body to physically, hold your fist and then release, squeeze your lower arm, release, and you can systematically move through the body. It's a great way to kind of settle at the end of an evening. And also just various different mindfulness practices. There's lots of them available. So we'll do a body scan together, just a short experience, and then we'll have time for questions. Okay, so if you'd like to experience the body scan, you can sit comfortably in your seat. Hands can rest palms down on the body if you're feeling like you need a little bit of grounding, okay? Eyes are welcome to close, or you can simply just gaze downwards. Softening the gaze helps this process. So let's just take a deep breath in. And exhale, release. If you want to find that ocean breath, we'll take 2 more breaths in. In. And out. Good. Just draw the awareness up to the top of the head. Keep breathing. Notice what's happening there. Draw the awareness to the face. Notice any holding in the face. And allow that to soften to your comfort level. Draw the awareness to the jaw and the neck. Softening and releasing to your comfort level there. As you continue to breathe, draw the awareness to the shoulders, the collarbone, the upper back. Notice any holding there and releasing to your comfort level. Drawing the awareness now to the ribs, the chest, the middle back. Noticing sensation there. And releasing to your comfort level. Drawing awareness to the arms, front and back, hands and fingers. And releasing to your comfort level there. Drawing awareness to the lower abdomen, lower back, hips and waist. Noticing sensation there. And releasing to your comfort level. Drawing awareness now to the sitting bones, down into the pelvis, legs, knees, and feet. Noticing sensation there. And releasing to your comfort level. Drawing awareness now to your whole body. Noticing how you're feeling. And then as you feel ready, allowing the eyes to gently open. So thank you for letting me share a few simple practices from the yoga tradition with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. All right, panel, 1 or 2, now that we have to wake up, 1 or 2 pearls that you would like to give to the audience, take-home message from your talk. Mary?
For me, it's probably going to be open with your practitioner, whoever they are. Let them know what's going on in your life, what kind of meds you're taking, what kind of supplements, so that they can help and maybe get to the bottom of the problem.
Alicia?
My pro would be, I mean, definitely, as we talked about earlier, be very open with your practitioner so we can assess, whether you're in crisis or not and react appropriately. But while you're doing palliative care, I really want you to start thinking about where's the cause and, try to help your practitioner help you to figure out the cause.
My take-home message would be that whatever is shareable is bearable. We're not designed to do life individually or isolated, so we're social beings. So especially as we head into that season where we're most prone for anxiety and depression, make sure you're talking with friends and loved ones or find a practitioner that you trust where you can share things.
We have our own microphone.
So I think I would say eat better and exercise and meditation. I think that then you get yourself up to a good start.
Yeah, along those same lines, find ways to move in a way that feels supportive to you. And remember to breathe. Remember to breathe.
And I actually would say, be a baby, okay? And start your daily self-care routine. That will help you with all that Ayurveda has to offer. And Charlie, I'm gonna have you take the mic. Charlie's gonna, yeah, she's not gonna talk, but she is going to take your questions and we will try to answer them. Specifically, we can't give you medical advice for a personal issue, legalities, you know how it is. And Dr. Moore is sitting over here, so we can't do it. But feel free to ask some questions. We went over a little bit because we had to start late. People were coming in, trying to figure out the parking thing. But anyway, go ahead. Terry?
Actually, this is not a question now that I think about it, but I want to do high tech and low tech, and on some of that you've dealt with. Habits, setting up habits, and with technology now, you can set up habits in your phone, you can set timers in your phone, you can get minute timers, you can be low tech, you can put high tech so that your phone beeps every hour to make you get up and move around and actually go through it, and add hydration. Drinking enough water is really part of it, along with having food. So think about your body as a living creature that needs periodic things added to it. So use the high tech and the low tech. Vibration is actually one of the biggest new things. And you can do vibration in any way. Any of these things we talked about, people have vibration machines. Walking is a vibration, gardening is a vibration. Any of those kind of things, vibration really makes a big difference. Tying and hearing. And so we have cell phones now, so we can actually put in breathing chimes. We can put in our favorite music. We can space ourselves out for a few minutes on our favorite relaxing tone. And they've actually shown, even with Alzheimer's patients, if you do the music of their era or their favorite music, oftentimes they'll start telling you about the story when they heard it. Oops, sorry, it's mine. When they heard it and who they were with and how they met their wife or whatever, but they'll talk to you when they never talk any other time.
Right.
So it really ties in connections to the brain in a really different way. And so it also calms down anxiety and calms down depression and brings you out of where you're at. So with technology, you can actually find a lot of different tools out there, even steppers. Your phone can count your steps. Everything can do everything now if you want assistance to help remember, oh yeah, I do this at this time. Oh yeah, I forgot to eat. It's about time to eat. Bing, have an alarm or something that can help you.
Thank you. And their meditation, in Eastern, vibration is very important with breath and meditation. So that is something that you're right on with that. Any other questions? That's it? Oh, Emily. Emily's got a question.
All right, Andy.
But the TV guys can't hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
15 minutes of fame.
Thank you. Okay.
I was wondering if there are any specific like spices or teas that you would recommend for gut health.
You want to field that, Alicia? No? Well, fennel, cardamom, cumin, teas, and they are available by companies that specialize in organic teas. Also rose, chamomile, the standard lavender, things like that. Sometimes if you can tolerate milk products with a big dose of fresh nutmeg, it's very effective with anxiety and insomnia. Anything else, Sherry, you can add?
Well, I think, oftentimes I like to make a tea. It's actually fresh ginger really settles the middle. So if you have any kind of a nausea, because if your gut is not happy, you're not really happy. You have cramps, then with brown sugar, just you take the skin off because the skin is cooling, but then the fresh ginger itself is warming, and then just probably 4 or 5 slices, and then in a cup of water, and then put maybe 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and just steep it and then drink it. If you have any menstrual cramps, you sweat a little bit, you go to sleep, you wake up, it's gone. So it's very good for any kind of abdominal pain, feeling cold, menstrual cramps. So I think, that also is good for spirit, I think. My daughter always ended up happier when I gave her that.
Yeah, it's probably the sugar. The other thing is, just the Ayurvedic tea, just warm water with some ginger and lime juice, just not the little, bottle things, but just spurts of that is useful.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, we got to get the microphone way over there. Thank you.
I actually work with a lot of people of a younger generation who talk about marijuana and using marijuana for their anxiety and depression. What do you think of that?
What do you think, Shawn, Mary?
So my bias has been that if they're looking for an excuse to get high, probably not the best use of that. But I have had people, I have had people use it appropriately to reduce anxiety, but there is a rebound effect. So if you are smoking out and then stop, you're going to experience a rebound effect. You're going to have anxiety in spades. So as long as you're aware of that, I don't see personally, and I'll let everybody else chime in, I don't see a problem with it. It's like anything else could be misused. And with the younger generation, I get very clear about what are you looking for. Like if you're looking to get high, then maybe we shouldn't be, let's talk about something else. But
Can I answer that a little? I do medicinal marijuana stuff. And interesting, actually, there are allergic reactions to marijuana where you can actually get more anxious. And so you have to be careful. And the other thing you have to worry about on it is that unless you actually grew it yourself, they're using lots of herbicides and a lot of other stuff on the marijuana, and you don't even actually know what's coating the marijuana. So be aware that unless it's certified organic and medicinal and you get it from a proper place, you really can't guarantee. And in the olden days, being an olden day person, the marijuana now compared to before is 100 to 1,000 times stronger. So I do believe that the ranges of the CBD versus the THC really makes a difference. So THC is the one that makes you high and makes you have hallucinations and all of those kind of things. CBD is now becoming very commonly used in salves for hands, edibles, creams. There are actually percentages that you can get in plants, and so the really conscious people that know about marijuana can tell you and often test them so that they know how much CBDs or how much THC is in it so that you can actually get a better. And so usually the CBD doesn't make people as anxious. The THC, if you have a tendency to get anxious, especially when you lose control, then it'll also make you more anxious. And the THC has a depressive effect as well, whereas the CBD is not to the same extent.
Thank you. One more question. Charlie, if we have somebody up in the center here.
Who are you pointing?
Quick, while we're waiting to get the microphone to you, I just wanted to give you that website I talked about earlier. It's called EWG.org. It stands for Environmental Working Group. And they really do an excellent job as far as providing you with a lot of scientifically backed research to be able to try to lower contaminants, pollutants, toxins in your environment. They have a whole other separate website called Skin Deep where you can actually rate your bath and beauty products because unfortunately they are full of toxins that are very detrimental to your health. You'd be surprised. But so it's a wonderful resource, and that's one of the ways where you can, get information to lower the pollution that we were talking about earlier that can negatively affect your nervous system and your gut health.
Okay, our last question.
It's a little more of a comment or a share about some of the questions about gut health and the neurotransmitters and depression and anxiety. I recently started working with a product that was just recently designed by the Purium Nutrition Company, and the first clinical trial was just released about 3 weeks ago, and the press releases are just starting to roll. It has
So is this something that's going to be marketed? Because we really can't talk about
well,
that kind of
we don't have
thing.
to talk about the marketing aspect,
Okay.
only the fact
Well,
that
we
it
can't
has
talk
a...
about a particular product or sales.
Okay, then what about just mentioning that it has a glyphosate detoxer that pulls the glyphosate in the trial out of the microbiome, and so
That's
just
something we
how to
can look
release
into.
research
Yeah.
that isn't product related, research on the glyphosate toxicity and the damage of the microbiome and the restoration
Right.
of the microbiome with the glyphosate detoxification process,
Right,
and then regeneration with the prebiotic
right.
and that aspect of the villi and the microbiome and how that can help improve.
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can learn, and it's early on, and I think that this is going to be the wave of how we treat patients with personalized medicine. There's a lot more to learn. So, thank you, speakers. Before we end, I want to make sure that we have all your evaluations. If you want to give them to Charlie right there, the lady with the microphone, before you leave. It does take a village to put on our programs. I'd like to acknowledge all these individuals who work many hours to help put this program together. So thank you for that. Thank you, speakers. And I'd like to thank the audience for taking time out to share with us. Our next forum will be on insomnia in January, and we will put a Facebook post on that, and if you want your email on our site, that would be great. And we'll stick around up here if you have specific questions, and if there are any students, I can sign off on your presentation requirements if you need that. And thank you, and see you next time.